Hello, denizens of the internet. I'm here with your retro TV guide fix. This time it's the 1976 fall preview issue. I know you just love these videos, and so do I. What's great about them is documenting the shows that disappeared in their first year. And that's really what's most fascinating. Some of you even remember them. Some are laughably ill-conceived, and others unlucky to be up against a huge favorite. My last video for 1975 was perhaps the worst collection of new shows of any fall preview TV guide I have done. How will 1976 fare? But before we dive into the guide, let's set the table by checking out the major news events that shaped 1976. Of course, we all remember the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights coming into effect. Swine flu outbreak begins in Fort Dix, New Jersey. In Argentina, the armed forces overthrow the constitutional government of President Isabel Perón. Apple Inc. is formed by Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne. The first steel roller coaster with a vertical loop opens at Six Flags Magic Mountain. Israel Defense Forces raid Entebbe Airport in Uganda, rescuing all but 4 of the passengers and crew of a hijacked Air France jetliner from Palestinian terrorists. Capital punishment in Canada is abolished. Nadia Comaneci becomes the first person in Olympic Games history to score a perfect 10 in gymnastics. The American Viking 1 lander successfully lands on Mars. Red dye number 4 is banned. Fidel Castro becomes president of Cuba. An assassination attempt is made on Bob Marley. The oil tanker Argo Merchant runs aground near Nantucket, Massachusetts, causing one of the worst marine oil spills in history. The CN Tower is completed, making it the tallest freestanding structure in the world. That's in Toronto, kids. The movie Rocky, starring Sylvester Stallone, is released, and Jimmy Carter wins presidential election over Gerald Ford. On to the fall preview, 1976. Changes. Rich Man, Poor Man was such a huge hit last season that it's coming back as a series. Archie Bunker gets a black antagonist featuring Vinetta Carroll. Barnaby Jones hires a youthful investigator played by Mark Shearer. Barney Miller has 2 new additions. Ron Carey and June Gable as Gregory Sierra Chano has left the show. Della Reese joins Chico and the Man as a feminist caterer. Happy Days unveils Fonzie's new girlfriend, Pinky Tuscadero, Roz Kelly. Tony Orlando and Dawn enlarge the title of their show, adding Rainbow Hour and adding George Carlin as a guest. First up is Holmes and Yoyo, ABC. Detective Alexander Holmes has no luck with his partners. They always end up at the hospital or the morgue. But this won't happen to his very new partner, Yoyo, a sophisticated, indestructible android, starring John Shook, Richard Schul, Bruce Kirby, and Andrea Howard. Lasted 13 episodes. Sample episode. The detectives are assigned to protect a key grand jury witness who is so fearful for his life that he is evading them. I remember this show. It was quaint that all you had to do to create a believable robot was to stick a Hewlett-Packard scientific calculator to someone's chest. It had a running gag that whenever Yo-Yo said Bunko Squad, he would get into a loop and keep repeating it until Detective Holmes hit him in the back of the head. Perhaps that's why it died so quickly. Mr. T and Tina, ABC. Taro, a single father, relocates because of business from Japan to Chicago. Conservative Taro wants a traditional nanny for his children, Aki and Sachi, but he gets Nebraska-born Tina, who challenges his orthodox ways. Starring Pat Morita, Pat Suzuki, Susan Blanchard, June Angela, Gene Profanato, and Ted Lang. Lasted
5 episodes before it got the chop. Am I allowed to say that?
Sample episode. Taro's cousin Kazoo, a sumo wrestler, arrives for a visit. He falls in love with Tina, leaving Taro with the dilemma of having him feel rejected. The brains behind this show was James Comack, who was famous for Welcome Back, Kotter.
Most Wanted, ABC. The mayor of Los Angeles created a special unit, the Most Wanted Unit, in the police department to capture the most wanted criminals. Captain Link Evers heads the unit with Sergeant Benson, and Officer Manners sets out each week to capture a different criminal, starring Robert Stack, Shelley Novak, Joanne Harris, and Harry Rhodes. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. Star college quarterback Eddie Harris is the target of a sniper who's determined to kill him. Evers and his team discover that the assassin is a bitter ex-teammate of Eddie's, and his motives have something to do with a tragedy in his past that also involves well-heeled team booster Moose Watson. According to Robert Stack in his autobiography, Straight Shooting, Most Wanted had become a top 10 Nielsen ratings hit, but was canceled by ABC due to network politics after just 1 season. I'm pretty sure the character Stack played in this show was the one he recreated for the movie Airplane.
Delvecchio, CBS. Dominic Delvecchio is an integrity-minded, honest police detective who works out of the Washington Heights division of the Los Angeles Police Department. When not screeching tires, roasting bad guys, and trading quips with his burly partner Paul Shonsky, Delvecchio can usually be found at his father Tommaso's barber shop or cracking the book studying for the bar exam, which he has already flunked more than once. Starring Judd Hirsch, Charles Hayde, Michael Conrad. Lasted 1 season.
In its 9 p.m. time slot, competition was The Streets of San Francisco on ABC and Movies on NBC. It was moved to 10 p.m., but that didn't save it. For a show that only lasted 1 season, I still have memories of it.
Quincy, NBC. Quincy and Sam are working as coroners. Inspecting dead people, they often see facts that don't match the theories of the police how or if they were really murdered. Starring Jack Klugman, Robert Ito, John Ragan, Joseph Roman. Lasted 8 seasons.
They say the show was inspired by the book Where Death Delights, but every Canadian knows it was a ripoff of a CBC show called Wojak, starring John Vernon.
Cause, ABC. A sketch comedy series hosted by Bill Cosby, starring Bill Cosby. Barely got to 7 shows before being roofied.
According to Chris Beard, the producer, the show was aimed at young viewers, which now sounds really creepy.
Executive Suite, CBS. Don Walling is the president of the very large and very powerful Cardway Corporation. This series looks at the lives of the Cardway employees and their families, schemes, affairs, and underhanded dealings. Starring Mitchell Ryan, Stephen Elliott, Sharon Acker, Leah McCloskey, Wendy Phillips, and many others. Debuted in September of '76 and went bankrupt February of '77.
The show was based on the 1954 film directed by Robert Weiss. It was notable for being pulled from Irish TV because of an abortion storyline. The Catholic Church demanded it. But of even more significance was that Sharon Acker played O'Donnell Hoden in The Mark of Gideon on Star Trek. Pretty hot.
The Captain and Tennille, ABC. A weekly variety show hosted by the husband and wife recording duo, the Captain and Tennille. Guess who it starred? Lasted 1 season.
Another musical couple variety show that tried to duplicate the charm of the Sonny and Cher show that also influenced the Tony, Orlando, and Dawn show. Notable guests were Don Knotts, Roy Clark, Leo Sayer, and Leonard Nimoy. I hope he didn't sing on the show.
All's Fair, CBS. This sitcom, set in Washington, D.C., details the relationship between 49-year-old conservative political writer Richard Barrington and his liberal photographer girlfriend Charlie, much to the amusement of their friends and co-workers. Starring Richard Crenna, Bernadette Peters, Lee Chamberlain, J.A. Preston, Judith Kahn, and Jack Dodson. Lasted 1 season.
Sample episode. Richard persuades Charlie to move in with him and then is asked to speak out against permissiveness. A Norman Lear show. Great cast. But it was pretty much non-stop arguing. Michael Keaton showed up for about 8 episodes as Lanny Wolf.
Gemini Man, NBC. Sam Casey is caught in an explosion which makes him invisible. By using a stabilizer in the form of a wristwatch, he can remain visible. By turning off his stabilizer, he can become invisible again for short periods of time. Any more than 15 minutes of invisibility will make him disappear forever. Starring Ben Murphy, Catherine Crawford, and William Sylvester. Disappeared after 12 shows. The David McCallum version of The Invisible Man didn't work, so why not try it again? Baa Baa Black Sheep, NBC. Major Gregory Pappy Boyington is the squadron leader of a group of fighter pilots stationed on an island in the Pacific during World War II. Pappy often needs to step in when there are altercations at the base, but everyone pulls together when they have to take to the air. Starring Robert Conrad, Simon Oakland, Dana Elcar, Dirk Blocker, and others. Lasted 2 seasons.
For a show that lasted only 2 seasons, it's very well remembered, probably because of William Conrad, and he was a very popular TV star.
Alice, CBS. Alice Hyatt, an aspiring singer, arrives in Phoenix with her teenage son Tommy after the death of her truck driver husband. Alice is hired at a diner owned by Mel Sharples, a gravel-voiced male chauvinist fry cook. She waitresses at Mel's diner while awaiting her big break. Her fellow waitresses are raucous redhead Flo and naive Vera, starring Linda Levine, Vic Tabak, Beth Howland, and Philip McKeon. Served breakfast, lunch, and dinners for 9 seasons.
Sample episode. A food critic eats at Mel's diner and dies. I never saw that episode, so I don't know if they chopped him up for hamburger. But then again, I can't recall seeing one show all the way through. It wasn't my kind of show, but people loved it.
The Quest, NBC. Morgan and Quentin Bodine are 2 brothers in the West who were separated as children when Morgan and their sister were stolen by some Indians. Morgan would spend several years with them, answering to the name 2 persons until the army liberates and reunites him with Quentin, now a doctor. Together they search for their sister, who is still with the Indians. Do I have to keep reading this? Yes! Starring Kurt Russell and Tim Matheson. 15 episodes shot, 12 shows aired. Mercifully.
But if any of you are thinking, who wrote this nonsense? It happened to be Tracy Keenan Wayne, who just happened to also write The Longest Yard, The Deep. Can't win them all.
Charlie's Angels, ABC. A wealthy mystery man who runs a detective agency via a speakerphone and his personal assistant, John Bosley. His detectives are 3 beautiful women who end up in a variety of difficult situations and compromising outfits. I added that. Starring Kate Jackson, Farrah Fawcett, Jacqueline Smith, David Doyle, and John Forsythe. Lasted 5 seasons.
Sample episode. The Angels enter the world of stock car racing to discover who may have caused the death of racer Susie Lemson. Yeah. John Forsythe was called in at the last minute to voice Charlie, when the original actor, Gig Young, turned out to have a drinking problem. Producer Aaron Spelling called Forsyth at midnight on a Friday. Forsyth ended up recording his first voiceover in his pajamas.
Gibbsville, NBC. Life in a small eastern town during the 1940s as seen through the eyes of a young newspaper reporter, starring Gig Young and John Savage. Say, didn't Gig Young get tossed from Charlie's Angels for being an alcoholic? Maybe that's why this show lasted only half a season. Ball 4, CBS. Pitcher Jim Barton informs his teammates and coaches that he's going to write a series of articles on baseball life off the field. Manager Capo Grosso and most of the others are not very keen on the idea. Oh, and it doesn't really matter. It struck out after 5 episodes.
Sample episode. Young pitcher Bianchi has lost the edge that made him special on the mound. He resorts to pep pills to get his skill back, which concerns his teammates. The book, Ball 4, was very funny. I can't remember the show.
The Tony Randall Show, ABC. Fastidious Philadelphia Judge Walter Franklin has a plummy housekeeper, a sloppy court clerk, an icy secretary, and an obnoxiously ingratiating assistant district attorney. Starring Tony Randall, Aline Ann McCleary, Barney Martin, Rachel Roberts. Stayed on the bench for 2 years.
Sample episode. Judge Franklin discovers that hiring a law clerk can be a trying experience. Miss Rubner, his secretary, does not like her boss's favorite applicants, and his scatterbrained stenographer wants to be considered for the position. Jay Tarsis was one of the creators of the show, a very funny guy with a fantastic track record. No luck here.
Dyke and Company, NBC. Another funny person trying their hand at a variety show, very much in the vein of the Carol Burnett Show, starring Dick Van Dyke, Andy Kaufman, and Bob Einstein. Lasted 11 episodes.
Of course, we all love Dick Van Dyke, but these variety shows almost never panned out for the networks. And they tried a lot of them, even with guest stars such as Carol Burnett, Tom Smothers, and Chevy Chase. Now, many of you people think I'm Chevy Chase. And no, I'm not.
The Nancy Walker Show, ABC. Nancy runs her own talent agency. This kept her busy while her husband Ken was on naval duty, but things have changed since his retirement. Nearby are daughter Lorraine, son-in-law Glenn, and gay housemate Terry, starring Nancy Walker, William Daniels, Beverly Archer, and James Cromwell. Lasted 13 episodes.
Sample episode. Lorraine suspects husband Glenn is conducting an extramarital relationship. Nancy and Ken try to offer helpful advice, but end up making things a little worse. Nancy left McMillan and Wife to star in her own show. It covered some controversial topics, but of course it would. It was produced by Norman Lear.
Snip, NBC. Snip is about a hairdresser living in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, who has his ex-wife, daughter, and former aunt living with him in his apartment. He and his ex-wife are both in the same hairdressing business under their boss and friend, who is openly gay. Starring David Brenner, Leslie Ann Warren, B.B. Drake, and Walter Wonderman. Lasted 0. Show was pulled before it even aired.
No point in giving a sample episode because none of them aired. It was a takeoff of the movie Shampoo and was created by James Comack, the creator of Chico and the Man and Welcome Back, Kotter. It seems NBC got cold feet because of the openly gay character and feared a backlash from its stations. But as you can see, they went as far as promoting it in the TV Guide Fall Preview. The 5 shows produced did finally air in Australia, causing, of course, widespread panic as the entire country became homosexual.
Serpico, NBC. Frank Serpico was a maverick New York City detective who, after turning in a large number of bad cops and later being shot in the face, often went undercover to expose corruption in the city. The scruffy-looking long-haired officer used unorthodox means to get results. Starring David Burney, Tom Atkins, removed from police duty after 11 episodes.
So, that's it for TV Guide's 1976 fall preview. What did you think? Any favorite shows of yours listed? Off the top of my head, I thought NBC with 7 had the most new shows, but it was ABC with 8. CBS had 6. And what were their success rates? NBC 2 with a big hit in Quincy. ABC only 1, but a good one, Charlie's Angels. CBS only 1, but a big hit with Alice. Tough game, eh? Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you.